Okay, I'm about to mess with another core memory that we've all just accepted about Jurassic Park, because there's one question hiding in the background of the entire movie that nobody ever seems to ask, and that is, why didn't the dinosaurs escape sooner? And more specifically than that, the raptors. I know, you're probably saying, oh, well, there was an electric fence, but think about it logically for a second. These are supposed to be the smartest dinosaurs in the park. The raptors test fences, they coordinate, they learn. Muldoon even tells us they systematically attack the electric fences. So if they're that intelligent, why are they just sitting in this tiny holding pen waiting for the power to go out? And hang on a second. Why are they even in this prison cell to begin with? Where did they come from? Why didn't they escape days earlier, weeks earlier, months earlier? Because once you start pulling all the details, it starts to look like something else entirely was happening throughout this movie. And the raptors may not have been trapped in that enclosure at all. They may have already escaped once before. And immediately, let's look at how the other dinosaurs in the park are literally housed. The herbivores roam a massive, huge paddock. The T-Rex has an enormous enclosure. That isn't kept in some holding pen. Everything is designed to stimulate a natural environment, but the raptors, they're locked inside this small, reinforced prison. Concrete walls, multiple electric fences, steel gates. Doesn't look like a paddock to me, looks like a prison. Which raises one strange question from the start. Why would InGen design something this extreme for just one species? Unless something had already gone wrong. And I know your immediate thought goes to the beginning of the movie, where we literally see the shooter scene, where Joffrey's literally being eaten alive by that velociraptor, and you think, that's why they did it. Well, hang on. Back up a second. They're already moving velociraptors into this containment pen, and they're killing someone while doing that. So why did they move them to begin with, before this kill? We're missing something here. The very first scene we see involving the raptors already tells us something important. They're not introducing the raptors to the park. They're moving them into containment at this point, which means the raptors had been somewhere else before that moment. And if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll already know this. This isn't new information. They were already kept in another paddock in the park. The raptor paddock, and that was clearly not secure enough. But we'll come back to that in a second. You see, later on in the film, Alan Grant and the kids discover something that changes everything about the movie: a dinosaur nest. And inside that nest are eggs. And upon seeing that, we immediately realize something, that the dinosaurs are breeding. But look closely at those eggs. The shape and context strongly suggests they belong to raptors. How? They look exactly like the ones we see at the beginning of the movie, the one a velociraptor hatches from, which means at some point velociraptors were nesting somewhere outside of that containment pen, without anybody in Jurassic Park even realizing. That's the scary thing. No one who worked in Jurassic Park had realized these dinosaurs had escaped and had started breeding. But did they escape from the containment pen, or did they escape when they were in the paddock? Well, here's the detail that everybody seems to miss, and this becomes very interesting if you watch it carefully: the raptor feeding scene. The one where the cow is lowered into that containment enclosure. Most people remember the chaos, where the raptors are attacking and everything's going on. They remember the Muldoon speech, and obviously the crane reappearing with no cow and an absolute tangled mess. But watch this again. When the crane lowers the cow in and the cow hits the ground, there's silence. The raptors are not attacking immediately. Why? That's because they're actually studying the opening of the enclosure. The raptors don't immediately attack the prey. It's because something else is on their mind. They're paying attention to the mechanisms of the cage. They're watching the cage. They're studying the system, just exactly like Muldoon suggests. This isn't the first time they've done something like this. We also see it at the beginning of the movie when the raptor's studying the people moving their cage. Hence why it attacks and lunges the other way, where Muldoon's shouting, "Gate, gate, gate!" and the shooter scene. And later on, Muldoon explains something chilling about the raptors. He says they've been testing the fences systematically. They don't just attack randomly. They're probing, they learn, and they remember. That kind of behavior doesn't happen overnight, and it's been developing over time, which suggests the raptors have been studying their enclosure for a long time before the events of the movie, looking for them weaknesses so they knew exactly how and when to strike to escape this prison. Now let's pull all these clues together here, because a dark picture starts to emerge about Jurassic Park way before the movie takes place. We know from Muldoon that they bred 8 originally. He tells us this, and the big one came in and killed all but 2 of the others, meaning there were only 3 raptors in that containment pen. And here's where things get really interesting. What if the big one didn't kill all but 2 of the others? Sure, they found the body of potentially 5 other velociraptors, but because they had been breeding, they were still out there. The park hadn't accounted for extra velociraptors and left them out in the wild, assuming the 2 and the big one they had were the only remaining raptors, which was clearly wrong, and we see that in the movie. This then means we can see upcoming velociraptors that we know of in the canon in Jurassic Park Survival. And I know you're probably thinking, well, how would they have grown up that quickly? Well, it's obvious, the growth rate. We know that the offspring would literally be growing at an unprecedented rate. There's no way that the staff would even know that the 3 they had were the original 3. We already know the raptors had escaped their original paddock, and they probably had been doing so for months, hence how we see that they had been breeding. Them eggs and the footprints match exactly like the raptors we see in the movie. The chances are Jurassic Park staff eventually found out that the raptors had escaped their paddock, either by Muldoon finding that out himself on his patrols, a worker perhaps, or something far darker. Now listen to this. Muldoon gives us a clue. He says, the reason they have to feed him like this is because they'd all attack the fences when the feeders came. Now how did they feed him the original paddock then? Was it via feeders and handlers, like Muldoon is suggesting? If that was the case, could someone have been killed in the original raptor paddock, hence why they decided they were too dangerous to keep in the original park, and at Muldoon's orders had them moved out of their enclosure into this security prison, because they were far too dangerous, and far too intelligent, you see. Or could it be something far darker, that the raptors had clearly escaped and none of the Jurassic Park staff had noticed? That's evident throughout the movie, but what if they escaped and came into contact with Jurassic Park staff, viciously mauled and attacked them, hence why Muldoon had decided to label them too dangerous? Because if they just escaped and got picked up on the cameras, tranked and then rounded back up, they would just upgrade their defenses, well, their fences as such. But for them to be considered extremely dangerous, something must have happened, right? And yes, we know they killed Joffrey at the beginning of the movie, but prior to this, they were already being moved at that point. How many deaths has Jurassic Park actually covered up here? What even happened to all the old Jurassic Park staff after they evacuated the island? We know Samuel L. Jackson told them to evacuate the island and leave for the dock. How many of them were there? Were any of these staff initially killed by the raptors when the raptors were in the paddock? This is something to think about, and something I've explored in some other videos. But hang on, wait 1 second here. So why didn't the raptors actually escape sooner? Well, that's pretty obvious. They already did. They escaped in their original raptor paddock. They'd then been moved into this high security containment facility, not as a habitat, but as a last resort, you see. Because by the time the visitors arrived on the island, the raptors aren't just normal animals in an enclosure, they're literal prisoners. But by this point in the movie, they'd already tested the fences. They'd already learnt the weaknesses, and all they were doing was just waiting, biding their time for that night where the power finally goes out in the dark. And that's when they escaped their prison. Not their paddock, their prison. But not just only that, there are other moments in this film that hint something far deeper and darker was going on behind the scenes, before Nedry even touches the computer. And I've got videos on all of that, and it changes how you watch Jurassic Park and the entire story, so I highly recommend watching them after this. My next video is going to be on the fan favourite, Spinosaurus, and believe it or not, the D-Rex, both in the same video. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss that. Massive thanks to my InGen researchers who are on screen now, DVM Wannabe 1018, Fallen Zuria, and our Jurassic CEOs, Joseph Frost Ghosts and Zarkadian. And thank you for watching till the very end. And if you came across a velociraptor out in the open, could your day get any worse? You bet Jurassic can. Catch you later.